Yes, sir, Andrew. I just want to thank you for being on the podcast. I know you're a really busy man. Thanks for giving us the time. We appreciate it.
Definitely. Happy to be here, man.
Yes, I mean, you've been so successful over like the last 10 years. You just kind of want to tell everyone who's not familiar with you what it is that you do, who you are, and what you're doing right now.
So basically, I was a real estate agent since I was about 19 years old. I got in real estate. And till about 24, I struggled in terms of selling a property. Each time I sold a property, made $3,000. It was a big deal, right? By about 24, I figured out what I was doing. And I used to be what they call a listing agent. So basically, all I did was take listings. At a time, my goal was to have 30 to 40 active listings. And pretty much that was my life. So every single day, I was doing about 400 to 500 cold calls every single day. And my goal was I wanted to see a week, basically about 15 to 20 homeowners, at their properties. And then the deal was I would call them until they listed with me or they listed with somebody else. And that was a part of the thing that everybody hates doing in real estate. But I was so broke, I had no other choice. I mean, it was just like either that or I go back to my parents and tell them that I failed. And that was not going to happen. So that was basically my start in real estate. And since I was about 24 till I was about 33, it took me that long to make my first investment because every single year properties were worth more than they were the year before. And none of those numbers made sense to me. I mean, I studied a lot. I tried to do all kinds of homework. I never went to any seminars, but I did check out a heck of a lot of books from the library. So, and every year, 90s, so late 90s, 2001, 2002, 3, all the way to 7, every year it was more expensive. I just couldn't find value, and I was always interested in value. So I'm of the school of thought of Warren Buffett, which is basically, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So I couldn't find a deal, at least what I was looking for. And the first time I stepped into the investing arena was 2008, is when I started kind of jumping in flips. And since then till today, 2008 through 2010, all I did was purely flips. 2008, I did about 10 or 11 transactions. 2009, I think about 15 or 20, somewhere in there. 10 or 11, I think we did 50, 55 closed transactions. So we bought about 75, 80 houses that year. And then since then, we made a switch, which is our goal became purchase, rehab, refinance. So basically, rentals became our number one goal. That doesn't mean we didn't do a lot of flips, but our goal was how do you buy a property, rehab it, refinance it, and rent it out. And since 2011, the goal has been to accumulate a rental portfolio. So I think we are now about at 182 houses that we own that are rental properties.
And does the BRRRR model, right? BRRR.
Basically, yeah. I believe, it's, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat the process over again. So that's basically, we call it 257. 2 years, 5 houses, ideally, get them all paid off in 7. Ideally, it's a rather aggressive goal. So 7, 8 years, 9 years, you want to get them paid down as quickly as possible.
And what was like the main reasoning, that transition from going to flips to buying rental properties? What happened in your investment career where you're like, you need to make a switch or start adding that on, as your investment strategy?
So my biggest problem has always been is this, that my parents both were professionals, right? Both of them happened to be doctors, and I told them I wanted to be in business, right? It was the typical study hard, work hard, and you do well. If they did well by any standards, problem was they basically have to keep running on the treadmill, right? Now, it's a very high-paying treadmill, mind you, but they keep running on it. The harder they run, the more they make, but the day they stop, the income stops, right? And what I saw was my goal always was business. I don't know why. That's just how it was. When I got into real estate sales, I thought I was getting into business. I didn't realize I was getting into a transaction, which is what sales is. Same thing when I did the transition to flipping. I again thought now I'm going to own real estate, so I'm in the real estate business. I wasn't in the business. I was doing a transaction, which is rehabbing it, reselling for profit. And at least for me, it's just a glorified contractor. To me, not to anybody else, but to me, it's somebody. And plus, you assume all the risk. If you're doing contracting at least you don't have any of the risk, right? I mean, and what I found was I went from one treadmill to a fancier treadmill, which was flipping. Now it had a lot more buttons, but so it came with a lot more stress, a lot more headache.
I mean, you're still essentially from commission to commission.
Pretty much. I mean, that's how I looked at it. And then the rentals was that not only do I own the property, but somebody else has to run on the treadmill, on their own treadmill, which is working somewhere, being a plumber, being a carpenter, whatever they do for a living. Mm-hmm. And now they have to basically run really, really hard to keep filling my mailbox, right? And that finally I figured out how I could buy it, rehab it, get all my money out, and still every month have $400, $500, $600 net cash flow. And so that to me was ultimate security. And that's the reason. But it took me, I mean, I wish I was that smart that I figured it out early. It took me literally from 19 years old till about 33, 34 to figure that out. But once I figured it out, I just haven't looked back. I mean, I've never...
Man, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that long.
Man, it
like feels
a long time, right? It feels long, right? I mean, when you're 19, 33, you might as well feel old.
Right. It's
right
like
now, 33 at 42. Now, 33 is like, dude, I was young. Right? So, you know,
now,
that's kind of what it is.
When you guys started in 2008, that's pretty much right after the crash, right?
Right,
and a lot
during
of banks,
the crash.
Banks weren't lending. None of that was going on. How were you able to do, 8 to 10 deals in 1 year? How creative did you have to get to fund those deals?
So my idea always has been as simple that I always tend to make friends with people who have done better than me at something, right? And I always kind of tried to make friends with people who ran other small businesses. So I was talking to a bunch of these guys for real estate for like 2 years before that. And I was like, man, one of these days now the opportunity's coming. And a lot of them were like, well, if you do something, let us know. And what I did was I took a few of them and went and showed a bunch of foreclosures that were coming up. And a bunch of them said, yes, we will. And then one of the guys said, okay, I'm willing to put in $20,000. And I put in $20,000. That was the first deal. And I went to, there used to be a bank in Schaumburg at the time called World Savings Bank. Mm-hmm. I got denied for 2 other loans. And then I found this commercial lender. At the time, I didn't know what a commercial lender was. And they said, yes, we'll give you a loan. I'm like, okay, great. So the first flip I ever did was, I think it's 705 Morton is the street address in Hoffman Estates. Parcel C, simple 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch. And that was kind of the start of it. Now, once I did one, all the guys that basically had said yes initially and then kind of ran for the hills when the closing came.
Everybody says, yes, yeah, sure, I'll do a deal with you. But when you show them a deal and you actually ask them for the money, they're like, yeah, no.
my wife and my cousin and somebody lost money, right? Yeah. So it happened. I mean, the deal was this, that what I found was as soon as that train started moving, there were guys who came along who had said, no, I'm going to think about it. And they were like, dude, next time you do one of these, I'll pay for the purchase, I'll pay for the rehab. We can split the profits. I'm like, what? Are you serious? Right? I mean, and that snowball effect, because all I could constantly talk about was rehabs because I didn't have anything. And we were talking about it before, I tend to have an obsessive personality. Once I get something on my mind, I can't sleep. I can't think anything else except that. And that's all I would talk about. And really, that was kind of the seed. There were 2-3 guys who basically said, and I made them a deal that I don't think they could refuse. It was a crazy deal at the time. My deal was this, guys, if you do business with me, if we lose money, I put in my own $20,000, so I lose my money first. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty confident we would never lose money. That was what I felt, at least. I wasn't sure. But I knew we wouldn't lose $20,000. They're like, so you're saying if you lose, you lose. And if we win, we split 50-50. I'm like, pretty much.
Yeah.
And a lot of them look at me like cockeyed, like this guy's just bat crazy. I didn't have the confidence, quite honestly, to go to somebody and say, hey, do business with me. So I just did whatever I had to on all those deals.
But even then, that's better than most people can usually negotiate for their first deal.
Right.
You do a 70-30 split or 50-50 split.
Yeah, so I did 50-50s, right? Everybody, whatever profit we made, we just split it 50-50. And one thing I had always done business with were pretty conservative people. So my deal with them was this, that once we make money, you can't take the profits. You can look at the profits, but you can't take the profits.
Just take a screenshot.
You just have, yeah, exactly. And you just have to, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you just got to redeploy the capital. They're like, so we make a profit, we look at it, and then we redeploy it. I'm like, well, isn't that what investing is?
Right.
They're like, oh, yeah, we like this. And it sounds crazy, man, but it worked. I mean, it just was, these people were like, great. So we're going to keep reinvesting. When the money grows, then we can take it out. I'm like, exactly. And that was the first 10, 12
awesome.
deals.
So you take like the profit from the first one, do another deal with them, keep going. And then at what point would you like say, okay, you can withdraw money if you wanted?
I think it was about 3 years. I mean, we didn't plan it that way. We just said, okay, we're going to do 5, 8, 10 deals, and then we'll figure it out, right? And every time they would make money, they're like, oh, this is great. Let's do another one. And I mean, literally, I should have made a switch early, but now these guys had helped me. So then I felt obligated to them. Right. And for the first, I think, 120, 130 transactions, I was still doing 50-50s. I never went to 60-40. But once I realized that, okay, no, this gravy ship has to end, then I did a pretty good quick switch to 70-30. I would keep 70%. Then we went to 80-20. And then we went to, I was borrowing money flat out at 12%. And now we're down to about 8%, even from private investors.
Nice.
Just because you have so much money that people want to lend you, like you could dictate the terms because there's more
Correct.
money out there than you need.
Correct. Now, I guess back then, if you had never done a flip, what were some of the growing pains that you had when in those first year?
And my biggest problem was I'd never done construction. Right. So I literally didn't even know what a 2x4 was. Right. I was born in this country, but I didn't grow up here. So I grew up in India. So we don't do any DIY. Right. There's no such thing as you building your own jacuzzi or whatever, that kind of thing. You just don't do that. And so I didn't know construction. And my biggest problem was that, but I was so paranoid. Sometimes, being scared and paranoid is good. Is I still feel that you have to be a short-term paranoid personality in real estate and a long-term optimist. Because if you're not paranoid, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because you're not scared. If you're not optimistic in the long term, then you're not going to do anything because then you think, oh, everything is going down the basket anyways. Right? And so because I was so paranoid, I mean, the first property, we didn't pull permits. We should have. Right? Of course, you get caught. You put brown paper all over the windows. Some of the things that are classic, silly things.
The funny thing is that before going in, you know that you shouldn't do those things.
Man, the problem was I was so paranoid. I was so paranoid that a plumber would rip me off. An electrician would rip me off. Right? I didn't know. I just did not know. And everybody, 2008, if you imagine that market, everybody was going bankrupt. Yeah. Right? And everybody was telling me how I was crazy going and investing in a market where everything was going belly up. And my thought was, I always do the 180-degree theory. If everybody buys something, I'm going to sell. If everybody sells something, I'm going to buy. That's just what I've always believed in. So I knew the opportunity was when everybody was in trouble. But I just didn't know. And so whatever crazy things I had and whatever handymen, and these guys were lunatics that I did, but I got them to do the work. I mean, because I had no other choice. I had $30,000. Didn't matter if the project was $60,000 project. I was going to figure out some way to jam it into that. And, from 30, I think it went to 37, 38. But
that's not bad for our first deal.
Man, we had no choice. We had no choice. So
is that me? No,
that was.
Is it me?
Anyway,
that's fine.
My phone is on airplane mode, so it can't be me.
Yeah,
no,
I don't think it's mine.
Because that's usually the biggest issue, right? Like most people don't know anything about construction; they're getting started. So I think that's like the biggest growing pain. Sure, the deals are hard to come by, and the money is actually pretty easy to come by when you think about it. If you have a good deal.
Now, yes, of course. Right now. At the time, it wasn't, but now, yeah, it's a different deal, right?
Now, what is it that you actually do now? Because I know you do a bunch of events, you do your own deals. Like, what is it that you're mostly doing? Spending your time at?
So our main business today, we'll still do at a time about 4 or 5 flips, right? Which for our volume is very low. Yeah. Todd manages all of those, but our main business today is we have about 180 rentals. That's main business in real estate. We do flips so that because we have a fairly large office expense compared to most people, then it pays for all the insurances, all the running of a business, right? Because we don't use a dime from any of the rentals. We never have. That's one rule I've always had, that we're never going to touch any profits from rentals.
You just put it right back?
We put it right back, or we buy more properties. And that's one thing I've never defied, is that we just We just don't do it that way. So
what's like the long-term plan with that then? Because you just, obviously you want to build like a rental empire, but then is that just kind of like a retirement?
that's
down the line,
just
or?
money that's there, man. It's just the goal is $100,000 a month from net cash flow.
Okay.
That's the goal. And until I get there,
You
we can't
don't
touch
see any of
we just don't, because
Well,
we
I mean,
never
you-
see it.
you
so we
look
never
at it,
miss
but you don't
Yeah,
touch it.
exactly. It's ego satisfaction, right? But no, we don't live on it. We don't. I mean, it's there. It helps us buy more and more and more properties, but that's not something that we touch.
What do you prioritize? Paying off the properties you own or buying more rentals?
Buying
with it?
more good quality properties.
Okay.
I mean, all day long, even today, as long as I get a good quality property in a good area, 60% of value, we're buying. I mean, we're broke every 3 days. Every 3 days we're broke not because you don't have cash coming in, but because if you constantly keep buying, every penny you have goes into buying. It's not that you don't have money. It's just that you keep using every penny of it to keep buying more.
Yeah.
All your
not
money's tied up in
toys.
real estate.
The way
Yeah.
that bank account works.
And again, it's like we're buying assets every time,
Right.
right? That the goal is, it's a good way of being broke, because I like to spend money, so I'll just spend it on silly stuff if I see it. But if you don't see it, if you just keep buying and you have commitments, then guess what happens? It's like committing to a trainer, right? Then you go more often than you would by yourself. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of forcing yourself to do the right thing.
Then are you buying all these properties cash?
We're buying everything cash.
Okay.
We don't buy anything on financing.
And then you don't do refi and take out loans? You
We
just leave them
do.
in cash?
Most of the times we will refi and take them out, right? But see, there's a lot of costs. Like you have carrying costs on the properties. We just had 6 properties that got released, and there were tenants living there. The previous from when we bought them at auction, we wasted a year and a half on 9 houses, right? You have 9 houses stuck. That means about an average of say 80 to 100,000. That means you have close to $1 million stuck. Every month it's costing you money, and it's not making you anything, right? There is back, fines on it, all this stuff. So when they get all released, people are, oh my God, man, you bought a property for $60,000. Yeah, but you have $10,000 carrying cost. You have another $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 fines. So your cost of the property is not $65,000. It's $75,000, $80,000 plus. How many more properties could you have bought if you didn't have 10 stuck? What is the cost of time
Opportunity
value of
cost.
money? Yeah. So as the business grows, you have to kind of think about it rather than just in a small perspective. You look at it a little bit bigger perspective, I guess.
So how do you decide when you buy a property cash, or when you refinance, or if you don't refinance, you just leave it?
So the properties basically I own with my business partner Raul. A lot of them we'll put maybe a lot of times 50% loans on them. We don't, even if we can get say 100,000 out of them, we won't. We'll just put 50, 60,000 on our loan and just keep it. So that way we have very low LTVs on them.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we do it. And at the end of the day, we don't have to answer to anybody, fortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of, the less loan we put on it, the better for us in the long run.
And then when you take out the loan, you use that to buy more properties.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that
Exactly.
makes sense.
Right? You're recycling it all the time. So
Yeah, but how did you get to that point? Like, what were some of the growing pains from going, from just getting short-term loans to do rehabs and to move into like the long-term loans to do more of the rental portfolio?
that's actually a great question. So back in 2011 is when we did the switch to rentals. I had figured out how to do rehabs, and kind of what I was very fortunate about was that a lot of time in 2011, 2012, 13, 14, I had started speaking in front of a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just give away what people call secrets, right? I mean, to me, it was no secret. I was excited about whatever I was doing, and I would just tell people what I was doing,
Yeah.
right? And people are like, "You're crazy. Why would you do this? Are you selling something?" I was like, "No. I mean, I had nothing to sell. I'm just excited, man. I'm excited about what I'm doing." And they're like, and so when I would go through all the details of it, they're like, "Well, this is a lot of work." I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah.
But they would come and offer money. I mean, they would just, I'm like, "I didn't ask for money." They're like, no. You do the work. We'll do the 50-50 with you. I'm like, "I don't do 50-50s anymore. I'll do 70-30. They're like, "Whatever you do, we don't care. Here's the money." And it came to a point where we had way more money than deals I could do, right? So the next step I wanted to go to was rentals, which is I needed refi money on the back end, long-term financing. And in 2011, that was not available, right? So what I had to do was, and the second problem I ran into with that was, even though I had a 1099, nobody would give me a loan, right? They wouldn't give me a loan, not because I didn't have money or I didn't have credit, but at the time in the business environment, they're like, we need somebody with W-2.
Right, so 1099.
And 1099 wouldn't do it. They needed W-2. So what I did was I did the exact same pattern I did with flips, with rentals, which is I went back to all these guys that I knew. I'm like, hey guys, we've done all these flips. How would you like? I have a new idea for you. They're like, now what? Right? And I'm like, how about if we own the rentals, we'll buy them, rehab them. Instead of fixing them, flipping them, we'll just fix them to a standard of a rental, and then we'll refinance them. And they're like, then what happens? I'm like, well, this time you can't touch your income when it comes from a rental. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we're going to accumulate one rental, put the money aside. We're going to do it second one, third one, fourth one. They're like, when can we touch it? I'm like, never. Right? They're like,
so what's the point?
They're like, well, exactly.
Right.
The point was this, that everybody I've done business with are very conservative people. You tell somebody who goes to church, man, let's go to Bible study. They're excited. You tell them next day, we're going to go to a small group study. They're excited. Why? Anything related to church will get them turned on. Right? I mean, this was exactly...
Turned on in church.
Yeah, I know. No. I'm talking about as it relates to church, right? And I was talking to conservative people who just loved saving money.
Yeah.
And I'm giving them a formula how to save more. They're plumb excited.
Right.
They could be, I mean, they were like, a coke addict on cocaine.
Loans are on fire.
Exactly. I mean, they're just fired up to do more and more of those.
Yeah.
And so the other problem I had was I literally at that time in 2011 called about 33 banks to find one that was willing to refi real estate with commercial loans. I mean, it literally took me that long to find one. But once I found one, he literally did 30 or so properties.
Nice.
And then 2012, a few more banks came along, 2013, and now today, every bank wants to give you a loan. But I guess life is that way, right? When you don't need it, everybody wants to give it to you.
Yeah.
When you need it, you're just hard-pressed. So
now, and for all this money that people are coming up to you with, like, do you create a fund, or how does that work? Do you have to get like a security license or anything like that, or how does that work? Like, you can't...
I mean, now what happens is whenever I have borrowed money, I've always borrowed money 1:1. So if I borrowed 100,000 from somebody,
you're not like pulling it.
No, I don't pull money. I never have. I always just borrowed money because the deals I have done so far, even with flips, I don't do big flips. I don't do big rehabs. For me, a big rehab is $60,000 rehab. So still today, we've always stuck with small rehabs and higher net profits.
We just look at each other because we got a couple. We got 3 full gut second floor additions going on right now.
Man, listen, I think what it is you guys are fortunate or unfortunate, I'm not sure which one, that you guys understand construction, right? I never have. I'm a real estate guy.
No, we don't. We just let the guys do the construction.
Right, I understand. Yeah. But see, the deal is that my belief has always been is this. You find better quality deals, you don't have to do as much work. Mm-hmm. Because if you do a lot of work, then that's what you have to find is deals which require more work. And my focus always was to find better real estate rather than rehabs. And so rehab is something I have to do. So I do it. I don't do it because I like to do it. I mean, philosophically, it's just a little bit different philosophy. That's all.
I see what you're saying. Because, I mean, yeah, I guess. Because I think we went to one of your presentations once, and then you're just trashing all these big rehabs. I'm like, fuck, that's all that we like to do.
No, but there's nothing right or wrong with it. I think what it is this. And most people, like today, when we do the big events and all this stuff, I want people to focus on real estate. We're in the real estate investment business. Mm-hmm. We're not in the rehabbing business. Rehabbing is something we have to do, right?
Because you're adding value.
It's because you're adding value, right? But if you analyze your real estate that you've had, at least for me, mm-hmm. right? All the transactions that I've done, I feel there's a wrong belief in real estate that because I did work, I made money, right? That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is because I found the right property at the right number, somebody else basically, I improved a little bit and I made the most amount of money. For me, it has never been that because I did $90,000 worth of work, I made $90,000.
Right. You're not entitled to it.
Exactly. Because my belief is this, that every time I do a $60, $70, $80, $90,000 rehab, it takes me at least a good 10, 12, 13 months, 14 months to get the sucker done, to get it sold, all that stuff. So in 15 months, let's say we made $70,000 on a property, right? At the same time, if I can do 4 others, and make $30,000 each, I would rather take the $30,000 each.
Right.
Because the level of stress, the amount of properties I can find. So I've always been the exact opposite, which is low rehab budgets and smaller profits. To me, I'm happy with a $28,000 to $30,000 profit, but it needs to be done in 6 months. If a property goes over 6 to 7 months, even if we make a profit, we call it a loser. I mean, that's just how I live in my world, right? Is that to me, if a property takes a year and I make $30,000, as far as I'm concerned, it's zero profit because I've lost.
It's a long time.
Yeah, I have lost the opportunity cost on other properties. If that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes total sense.
Oh, yeah.
I've actually been trying to switch our business model to that, doing a lot of more low rehab, cost. But now, when you're looking at these single family rentals, for some reason, I don't know, they're usually never very attractive to me, just because I've never done a single family rental, and all I can think about is you have a 10-unit building, but you have one roof. You got 10 single family houses, you have 10 roofs. So it's just like from the construction or repair standpoint, to me sometimes the low amount of cash flow that you get from a single family, it doesn't look very attractive. So I guess this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you as well. Like, how do you guys structure your deals that it makes sense for you to do them?
So and what you said 100% makes sense, right? On paper, 100% makes sense. So here's a different way of looking at it, right? See, in today's market, at least in Chicago, I don't know about other markets, Chicago and the suburbs at least, we're buying properties. I'll give you an example, right? I just bought a 2-flat in Justice, right? We paid $140,000 for the property. We did about $40,000 in rehab, $20,000 per unit. It's a 2-flat, and the back end value came at $250,000, right? So now purchase, rehab, all that money came out, right? So we don't have anything invested. Every month, both units are rented $1,400 each, right? They're attached units, tandem.
Right.
So $1,400 each. That means every month that has a net cash flow of close to $1,000 net after all expenses.
That's pretty good,
right? And every property that I own, there's not one single property that'll have a net cash flow, including management expenses, of $400 or more every time, right? And whenever we buy the property, we do a rehab, which is a decent rehab that will sustain itself for the next 5 to 8 to 10 years. Assuming if the roof is bad, we'll do the roof, hot water heaters, air conditioners, right? So we do a rental style rehab. It's not obviously a flip rehab.
You're not doing quartz countertops.
No, of course not, right? But and we're doing 2 to 3 year leases. We don't do any lease less than 2 or 3 years.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense
right?
now, yeah.
So we don't have tenant turnover.
Right.
So 72% of all our tenants will always renew. And we have a deal for our tenants. You live in our property 6 years, we'll send you or your family anywhere in the world you want to go on vacation on our dime. Why? Because what does it cost me to buy a deal for 4 people? Right? 2 adults, 2 kids for $5,000, $6,000. If you live in my property, pay it off for 6-7 years, God bless you. You deserve a vacation on my dime, right?
Right. I mean, you've been running on that treadmill for me for 7 years.
Exactly. And the philosophy is very different,
okay,
right? Because if you look at it, so Berwyn, I'll give you a perfect example, the question you asked. You have single families. There, you can't buy the single families at a number that makes any sense today, right? Used to be we could buy 2 to 3 flats at a number that made sense by our numbers. The challenge was this. I had a choice of buying a 2 or 3 flat. Right across the street, I could buy a 6 flat or an 8 flat, right? And the problem was, in a 6 or 8 flat, I can't get anybody to sign a 2-year lease. Why? Because it's an apartment.
Right.
A 2 flat or 3 flat is my home. They'll sign a 2 or 3 year lease. In a 2 or 3 flat in Berwyn, they'll pay $1,250 to $1,350 in rent. In a 6 to 8 flat, they'll pay $850, right?
For a year.
For a year, exactly. And so it perfectly makes sense when somebody says, man, what about one roof? What about one staircase? What about one inspection, right? It makes perfect sense. What we have found is, even on 2 to 3 flats that we have, average net cash flow after expenses is $1,100 to $1,400 per building. But we get 60% more calls on a 2 flat or 3 flat than we do on single families.
Yeah.
Because the tenant will call, man, the guy upstairs, he has a puppy. He's yapping. Well, what do you want me to do? Go choke the puppy? I mean, it's just like, come on, man. The problem is, it's people are living together in close proximity. They're going to have issues. The nicest people will have issues, right? That's just how it is, right? So it just doesn't make any sense. So,
okay. And then, I'm assuming your favorite is a single family house rental.
My favorite property is a single family property, brick, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, half basement.
Net cash?
I'm sorry?
Net cash flow?
Net cash flow, it's always going to make us about 400 to 450 a month.
Okay.
Right? And the other thing is, we won't buy anything unless it has 20 to 30% equity on us on a conservative appraisal. So if the property will flip for 160, we'll claim it's only worth 140. And then we want to be all in it for 105. That's the numbers we
Super
want.
conservative.
Yeah, that's the number. I mean, that's just how my investment philosophy is. I'm not going to lie to myself. I mean, that's one thing is that I figured out, that the biggest fool is the person who lies to himself, right? It's different if you BS somebody else, but if you're BSing yourself, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk to you about your REIA, because it's probably the biggest REIA that I've been to. Every time I've gone, it's like 200 people. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is this guy? Like, what is this guy feeding these people? Like, you know, is like, how did you get? Like, how did you? How did you get started? Like, when was that? Because I know it literally just came out of nowhere. I'm like, holy shit, 250 people every time. Like, what's going on? I thought it had been going on forever, but it's, it's relatively new, right?
It's relatively new. It started at three and a half years ago. So the deal was this, that I went and spoke at a couple REIAs locally, right? Nice people, nice groups. My problem was, I don't like to do anything halfway. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. And what we did was, most of the REIAs, at least at the time, what they were doing is every month they would have speakers come in, and every month they would have a new gimmick to sell. We tried it for the first 3 months, right? The problem was, there were people that were coming at the back of the room. They're like, dude, what do you think about this? And I'm looking at the speaker, and I can't even stand in the room because they're selling BS. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can't. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go hide my face because they're selling complete bullshit. And what we made a decision was, one thing we're not going to do at the REIA. We will never sell bullshit, right? Somebody has a legitimate product. You legitimately are doing something makes sense. Great, right? Mm-hmm. Can people buy that, learn from that? Absolutely. But every month, there can't be some new gimmick in town. You know, this month it's tax, whatever. Next month it's probates. Next month something else. And if every month you have a new monkey that's going to sell some bullshit to people, and we're the ones that are promoting it, there's something wrong. And so one thing we have not done at the REIA is, we don't have outside chimpanzees. We create inside new chimpanzees every month that are local here in Chicago, and we know what they do. We know what their business is. And the whole philosophy was, if you're going to come to the REIA, and if you're just not going to do anything and tell me the taxes are bad, everything is bad, please don't belong. If you're going to tell me and show, hey, how can we grow? What can we do positive? If we can add something of value to you, God bless. We're happy to do it. But that's the same philosophy you should have. And around that, we have built a business like no tomorrow, right? Which is now, I think we have 13 locations, 6,000 members, right? And the goal is, I mean, last year we did 90, I think it was 88 meetings. This year we'll do 160 meetings in Chicago.
Fuck.
You know, so it's like, and the point is to be everywhere. And the next thing we're going to is real estate agents. So every real estate office, we're going to be there 100%. And the message is, double your income, triple your net worth. Because the people who own the least amount of real estate is real estate agents.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, right? And so the point is that, guys, listen, why?
Because they spend all their money on Range Rovers, man.
I know. I mean, I don't know if it's, I don't know what it is. I mean, I feel I have a personal connection with real estate agents. The reason is, I was one, and I know how difficult that job is.
It's hard.
Right? It's a pain in the butt job. So that's, I mean, there's nothing else I'm passionate about in life, but I believe in real estate, because that gave me an opportunity to go from 0 to here, right? So I feel that's a calling, and I really believe in it. So
you guys didn't sell anything for, like, your own course or anything
so
like that?
we sell something what's called mastery, right? So we have a mastery program we do a couple times a year. And that, if somebody wants to come to, great, right? So when we do the 3-day workshops, if people want to come there, but the people that we want in mastery are people who are going to do 10, 15, 18 transactions in the next 2 years. We don't want the guy who's going to be a multimillionaire and who's going to be a millionaire overnight. We don't want that guy, right? We want somebody who comes in to build a business. So the person who says, oh, I watched too many, success books, and this is my next lottery ticket, it's not, right? Real estate is a pain in the butt business, but you can do well with it. But so we tend to attract in mastery kind of a unique breed of people. Now, just to give you an example, we've done Mastery. This is the third year we're doing it. So far, we have about 328 people in Mastery, right? Since we started Mastery.
Yeah.
And in 3.5 years. And there have been over 3,360 transactions done just in that group.
Wait, how many people?
328 people so far. And
So
there's
it's like-
over 3,000 transactions.
That's like 10
that have
per
done.
person.
Yep.
Yeah.
On average.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's
So-
like
Now, mind you,
it's a
you'll
lot
have-
more than, you know, like
Yeah.
those weekend boot camps or
it's
anything like that.
we have an 87% success rate, and success rate is defined as somebody who does a minimum of 2 transactions, right? Now, mind you, you'll have the people that have 100 transactions, right? You'll have somebody who has none,
Right.
but that number is 15%, right? The success rate is close to 87% out of it because we breed that. I mean, if you're in Mastery, you own 5-10 houses. I mean, you're embarrassed to even admit it because it's just the problem in real estate is most of us look at the lowest common denominator in the room as success. We want the highest common denominator to compare to. Because why? If you are hanging around us, if you're friends with us, either we can learn from you or we can teach you something. Either we like hanging out together or we can profit with. If one of those 4 things is not happening, there's no point to it, man.
Right.
You know, and that's the philosophy. Once initially people were like, you know, this is crazy. This is impossible. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, if we're all going to win, then let's just do something. You know, and you might be better at maybe something. You might be great at construction. God bless. We'll say, okay, this guy's the expert at that. We're going to learn from him. And we're going to suck up the knowledge. And whatever information we have, we will share. And so one thing we always do at the REIA is we will share information freely. But what we don't like is people who will come and mooch. Right? If you're willing to share whatever resources you have, God bless. And we'll share back. And that seems to have worked. So
Yeah. We've never been shy about sharing information
Right.
with anybody. Every event that we've always done, we'd run a networking event for 1.5 years. We do cash flow games, we do fix and flip tours, the podcast. Never charge.
No,
for
I mean,
anything.
I both of you guys, right? I want to congratulate you guys on the podcast you guys are doing, right? Lori was telling me, she's like, you should listen to it. I'm like, I listened to a couple of your podcasts, and you guys are doing a great job because it's a great service. At the end of the day, if somebody's inspired and you guys get an opportunity to meet a lot of people, right, in different walks of life, some you may be a cup of your coffee, somebody else may not be. That's okay, right?
That's fine.
Yet you get to learn, so can't hurt.
It's the same thing with your group, right? It's like you want to surround yourself with successful people, and if somebody's not pushing it forward, then what's the point? You want to surround yourself with those people who want to do shit.
No,
So,
agreed. I mean, and man, listen, I have a basic philosophy in life, and that is, as it relates to real estate, rentals, this whole thing, that if you take care of real estate for the first 5 years, it will take care of you for the rest of your life. The important part is if you take care of real estate for the first 5 years, and it has to be the right kind of real estate, right? Sure. But if it's done properly, you're done for the rest of your life. And that most people don't get.
Well, everyone wants to get, rich quick, like rich overnight. And a lot of people overestimate. People overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
5 years, yep.
It's like just give it 5 years and don't give up, and you'll see success.
No, it's so true. And that philosophy, unfortunately, is not there, right? I mean, all the principles I invest with, there's a book written by Benjamin Graham, who happens to be the father of investing for Warren Buffett, right? It's also called The Intelligent Investor. Mm-hmm. And all the basic principles of investing, right, that Warren Buffett has used throughout his career in the stock market, I use it in real estate. I mean, it's the same philosophy,
translates,
right?
Yeah.
It just all translates. It's basic. You're buying value. And our job is not to do, I mean, my thing is, if I have to do a rehab, $30,000, $40,000 rehab, we made a bad investment. That's just how I look at it. So every house we're supposed to walk in, we're supposed to do $10,000 to $15,000 in work, create $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 in value. This is what I believe. Now, mind you, it's unrealistic and it's nutty belief, right?
Because those are like the most competitive deals. But
man, they happen every day.
No, but I'm saying like those are actually deals that a regular homeowner could buy. So you're competitive, like the people that you're competing against is like twice the amount because you're competing with investors and you also competing
100%
with
true.
Homeowners.
100% true.
Like,
but see, the thing is, here's something to think about, right? When you're buying Cook County auctions, which most people can never buy, right? That gives you the edge. When you're buying properties that are occupied, that gives you the edge, right? When you're buying properties from, say, distressed places from mailings that nobody else gets to. That's where the edge is.
So where are you most of your deals coming on now, from auction?
30% from auctions, 30% from off market. So which is going to be mailings, 30% MLS.
And you just do direct mail to like absentee owners or inherited or all that.
Yeah.
Is there anything like specific or just?
No, we test all of them. We test them. And I mean, we have tried to focus on one or the other. Some weeks it's like, oh, we're giving up everything. We're just going to do X, Y, Z. And then the other thing comes in. And so what we've noticed is you just have to kind of stick to a variety of things.
Just a consistency, right?
We're talking to this guy from Pittsburgh, and he doesn't do any lists. He just says, all houses that are this type of house in a zip code, I'm going to send a letter to them.
Yeah.
Whether it doesn't matter if inherited, it doesn't matter what. It's pretty much like door knock.
It's consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this, what we do, even with auctions, with everything, right? Cook County Auctions is the biggest crazy place to go buy. Yet we've been buying for the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years, consistently. And even in the best of markets, there are properties that come up that are pennies on the dollar. It's just that if you're there at the... See, for most people, think about this. For an average investor, a good 5 or 6 deals makes their year.
Yeah.
Right? A good 5 or 6 deals.
38 grand, that's like 150 grand. Yeah.
And now forget about like somebody like us, right? We run a business, so our needs are a little bit different. But, man, you mean to tell me in the MLS last year there were 260,000 transactions in Chicago? You mean to tell me there weren't 5 deals any of us could have gotten?
Right. Most of the deals that we've gotten were from the MLS.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. I just bought a property, Evergreen Park, right? 2-story property, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, probate property, in $105,000, right? And the property needs less than $10,000 work after Evergreen Park inspections.
And that's
Which you put down a
tough.
$10,000 cash bond with them.
I'm sorry, $10,000 cash bond.
Yeah.
Right? They have a $10,000 cash bond.
Which is crazy.
No, it is crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I don't get it.
Man, listen, that property is worth $190,000, $200,000. Right? I mean, we're buying it at a great price. We're going to do $10,000 in work. We'll put up the $10,000 bond. We get it back.
Right.
When it's refinanced out, we have $600 cash flow.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's like a lottery ticket.
Pretty much.
Right? It's a lottery ticket, and it's MLS. And I mean, the property, the 2-flat I was talking about, that's MLS property. There's 2 more properties we just got MLS properties.
You just got to move quick, though.
You got to move quick.
Is it like same-day offers, like that they come out?
Same day offer. I mean, within
like immediate.
Our average property that we get at a good price, the offer is made within 19 minutes of it hitting the MLS.
Okay, so you're just putting in. Are you putting in blind offers then?
Yeah.
Like,
So you got searches.
Yeah. So we're putting in blind offers like a week, 35 to 40 offers a week that are blind. And out of that, 3 or 4 get accepted.
and how do you determine what the offer price is if it's blind? Are you just doing a percentage of what you think the ARV is, or well, you know the numbers there, but
We know every suburb. So we're buying about 45 suburbs is what we buy, 45 to 50 suburbs. And we know it by the street. I mean, either us or somebody in Mastery owns, like, I'll give you an example. So in Hometown, right? Hometown is a great example. Hometown, either between us and Mastery, there's only over 60 houses owned. Hanover Park, there's close to 80 houses owned. In Streamwood, there's close to 100 some houses that we own, either I own or somebody from Mastery owns, right? Halfman Estates, Bartlett, Homewood, right? There's a ton of towns where we just, if we're going to go buy, then everybody from Mastery is buying there. And it's so easy for us to go, hey, 22nd Street, what do you think? Lions, same thing, in all these suburbs. And what it does is either we're putting a contract or there's 8 to 10 guys from Mastery putting contracts on the same property. You know, and we're wins. God bless.
Yeah.
Either we're all going to basically be happy because either I want it or somebody who's a part of the group want it, but it's a win for all of us.
So you basically have all the data because either you're getting it or someone from Mastery is getting it, and then not only that, but then you can see how it plays out down the line to see in retrospect did it work out, did it make sense? So I still want to
Exactly. And I mean, all the REO agents, same thing. With all the REO agents, we make it a business to know them, you know, and they know that even if I can't take the property, if I commit to it, somebody will take it in the group. Because for some people, it's okay for them to have 15% invested in the property, right? So that's why when we win so many auctions, because I might not be able to take the property at, say, 80, but somebody else will take it happily at 85. A flipper can't go up more than to 82, 83. His numbers are going to start getting tight. But for somebody who's like, for a flip, typically if the property is going to sell on the back end for 160, how much can you pay at auction? Max, typically 80,000 max. You start pushing more, a little bit goes wrong. Guess what happens? You're making no money on the back end. Right. Whereas if we're buying the same property for a rental,
because your rehab budget is obviously a lot lower.
Exactly.
And you always make money eventually, no matter what, because you have a long term.
Right. So, that's kind of the philosophy. So
cool. Now let's talk about your radio show, because you also host a radio show. Mm-hmm. What station it is and what you talk about?
AM 560 WIND. The Answer. So same thing, man. Radio show is another type of crack. To talk more about real estate. And every week it's a matter of talking about whatever the heck we've been up to. It's a lot of times it's basically having people come in that have done deals locally, celebrate their successes, or talk about what we're doing in the marketplace. Our only agenda with the radio show, with the REIA, with whatever, just keep talking about what we do, right? And what other people are doing. And it's both of them are a medium to recognize success. That's really what it is, right? Disseminate information as it relates to real estate in the Chicago market. And we have never gone out of the Chicago market. We don't plan to, right? The Chicago market is a 9 million draw of people. It's a huge market.
Right.
I don't need to go anywhere else, right? You can make millions sitting here. Why would I go anywhere else? So that's kind of the same thing.
You've been going on for what, 3 years?
For the radio show, it's the 6th year this year.
Sixth
year.
Damn.
Yep.
How do you still have things to talk about?
Man, listen, I have 4 thoughts in life. We were talking about this, right? I have 4 thoughts, and I repeat them 10 different ways to kingdom come. Sometimes I don't know why people show up at the REIA. We're blessed. All I can say is God's good to us when it comes to real estate and when it comes to people showing up. But I think one thing most people realize when they come, we're passionate about what we do, right? Yeah. And they're not going to get any BS. So whatever it is, if it's good, I'm going to say it. If it's bad, I'm going to say it. But that we're not going to let us stop in this way of success. So
that's awesome. That's cool, man. 6 years is a long time.
Yep.
Matt, did you want to go into the questions, or did you have any more questions besides what we got?
Where are we at?
48.
Oh, yeah, let's go into questions. Actually, I had one really quick before we go in. I saw you speak somewhere once, and regarding like the flips, right? Because obviously, you're making a shift from there. You said basically on a flip or like a first flip, there's like 9 different things that can go wrong that will screw you, that kick you out of the business. And you said if you did at least 3 of them wrong, that you're pretty much going bankrupt. Yep. Like what? Do you know what I'm talking about? And can you go? So can you go into that for?
Okay. So basic thing is, number 1 is overpaying for the property, right? That's the biggest thing. If you buy the property wrong, your goose is cooked. Number 2 is if you finance it incorrectly, right? If your financing cost is way too high, what happens is each time, every month that you carry the property extra, it's going to cost you close to 1.5, 2 points, right? If you screw up your financing. And then it's not a matter of whether you're going to blow your rehabbing budget. You will blow your rehabbing budget. Yeah. That's just what it is. I have never personally ever had one deal where I've kept my rehab budget. I wish I could tell you with a straight face. It always goes over, but goes over by a number that is okay, right?
So
I can live with it.
Mitigate the amount that it goes over.
Mitigate, exactly. Yeah. So if you're over a little bit, it's fine. It's no big deal. If your rehab goes over by $4,000 or $5,000, and that basically kills your deal, you had a dead deal to begin with. Yeah, right. Your deal didn't make sense to begin with. If $4,000 or $5,000 kills your deal, there's something wrong with your deal to begin with. So the first is purchase price. Second is your refi. I take that back. Second is your financing issue, and the third part of it is going to be bigger than anything is your comps. If you comp the property incorrectly, right, then that's it. If those 3 things aren't done correctly, you're done. In the Chicago market, this is my belief, that if you comp the property incorrectly a little bit, and you comp it incorrectly in October, November, you're fine. Because you're going to sell the property in February, March, April, and you'll be able to get away with highway murder. Because your property is going to sell, in most cases, for more than you thought it would. Right? That's just the market, how it has been for the last 6-7 years. If that market property is comped incorrectly and you bought it in April, May, June, July, your property is going to come back on the market in September, October, November. Yeah, that's fucked. When you're getting beat up on the numbers, and you're in trouble.
Yeah, and then you're screwed on the price, or you got to wait till the next market
Exactly.
to help the holding costs don't kill you in the meantime.
Exactly.
Right, that's where the financing comes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that becomes a double whammy. So,
Okay.
you know.
Cool. We'll get into questions now.
Sure.
Should pick one.
What do you know? What do you wish you knew before you started?
Man, I'm glad I didn't know what I didn't know, because I wouldn't have started.
Yeah.
Because if I knew how difficult it was going to be, I wouldn't have started. I would have given up before I started. So, but I just wish I had met somebody who could have coached me through, helped me through, and held my hand through a lot of this stuff.
You wish you would have found a mentor.
I found a mentor or somebody who actually had a business who I could look at and duplicate, right? Because a lot of this stuff I had to kind of bumble my way through, right? And it's like saying, if I had the money that I have today and it was back 2008,
Be rich.
I'd be 10 times richer, right? So, that's kind of what it is.
I mean,
So-
that your personality also comes into play there, because you said once you set your mind to something, you can't stop until you get it.
Man, listen, it's like I just look at it this way, right? I have there are two things in life. Either you win at something, lose at something. I just hate to lose, right? So I will cry. I will, basically do whatever it takes, but I have got to succeed.
And life
because
doesn't hang out
it's just-
participation trophies.
Yeah, it just and I think what happens is once life figures out that you're kind of nutty, it leaves you alone. It just it paves you the way, because they're like, this guy's kind of loony. He's not going to let go of it, so just let him go. I mean, I really believe in that. That anything I touch, I believe is supposed to turn to gold. It does. So it just works out.
What do you do? Why do you do what you do? What gets you through the tough times?
So my goal is this, and I know a lot of people know my crazy goals. My goal is to buy a nice car. My first goal was to have enough money that I didn't have to look at the right side of the menu when I went to a restaurant, because there were long time of years where I had to look at the left, or the right side of the menu, where you should look at the prices first, then you order what you want.
The
Right?
tough one is when your girlfriend or wife is
Yeah,
looking
I know.
at the right.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I never wanted to have to make choices based on how much something costs. Then it was, I want a nice car. Then it was, what I wanted was peace of mind. Today, if one thing I'm blessed with is I have peace of mind that all the basic things that I ever need are met. Now, there's a lot of wants that I have, right? The next thing I have on my plane is I've always wanted a corporate jet. So that's what I'm working on right now, right? My next goal is I believe everybody should have that luxury, right? That's just what I believe. Now, it's crazy, but they don't cost that much, man. It's $4 or $5 million, right? And so then it's like, I'm like, if I can achieve it, why not, right? Because I always wanted a car that makes all kinds of noises. It's like boom, boom. Whenever you're a kid, you want like a nice, fun car. So I got to buy one. I crashed it. I bought another one the next day, And so, what my point is, I truly believe that any dream that we have, God doesn't give us a dream we cannot achieve. That's just how it is. And I believe that 100%. And if you have a dream, not just a desire, I wish I was taller. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that won't let you sleep. If there's something that bugs you in the middle of the night, that means you're meant to achieve it. That's just kind of what it is. And so to me, I never want to go out. One of these days, all our lights are going to be turned off. I do not want to go out not giving it my all. That's kind of what it is. And whatever I have to do to live that, I'm willing to do it.
It's very inspirational. What habits helped make you successful?
I think being lazy. The lazier you are, the more you figure out how. So here's what I mean. I don't mean that lazy as in that you're not willing to work hard, right? For a lot of people, for me, looking at a house is not work, right? For me, I won't wake up early for anything except if a property at auction is coming, right? Then I can wake up early. You tell me 2 o'clock in the morning, dude, let's go look at a house. I'm good to go. It doesn't bother me what day, time, if it's raining, if it's. I think some point you have to basically either, I don't know if you develop it or if you just have it, you have to be plumb excited about what you're willing to do, what you're going to do, right? And if you're excited and other people can see that excitement, right, the universe lines up to help you.
You have to be passionate, and then people can see that passion in you, and they want to be they want to be with someone like that, so they can get the same thing.
Exactly, no question about it. So,
I mean, also if you're quote unquote lazy, then you're able to delegate more and leverage other things.
And I just cannot work 30 hours, 40 hours a week for the next 40 years. Keep doing the same thing. And when I retire, there's a glass ceiling as to what my cash flow situation is supposed to be. I mean, that to me is a moral sin. Yeah. You know, I mean, if there is a sin in life, that's a sin. That you tell your kid that you're going to work for the next 30, 40 years of your life. After putting in that much work, then you have to live on $3,000 or $4,000 a month. I mean, that is crazy to me, right? And I mean, I think I was just blessed with I was always a dreamer since I was a little kid, right? I mean, I lived in my own world. A lot of my friends thought I was nuts. You know, it hasn't changed today. So it helps because I just don't see as anything as not a possibility, you know, so.
If you don't dream big, you can't achieve those dreams.
Yeah.
What was the worst piece of advice that you ever got?
I think worst piece of advice that I ever got was from my economics teacher in college. She's like, you know, the most likelihood is that you're going to make $60,000 at the top of your career.
How much?
$60,000. This is what she said in college.
At the peak of your career?
At the peak of your career.
What a dick.
So I just quit, right? That day I quit college because I went to economics class because in my mind at that time, right, you're 20 years old, 21 years old, and I was like, she understands economics. So economics means the study of money. At least that's how I thought about it. I didn't know, you know, and I'm like, maybe she has the answers, right? So I'm like, hey, you have a PhD in economics. I'm like broke in college and I'm trying to figure out what career I'm supposed to have because I want to be rich. Right? This is exactly what I told her. And she's like, well, statistically, the odds are you're never going to make more than $6,000 at the height of your career. And I was depressed. I mean, I literally wanted to cry because I realized even at that time, a nice car cost $60,000, even at that time. And I'm like, man, this sucks, right? And the worst advice I think you can ever get a kid is that they can never achieve something. It doesn't matter what it is. Our job as adults is we got to breed dreams in our kids. Like, why is it that when you're a kid and you have no ability to achieve, you have dreams? And when you're an adult, you have the ability to achieve, you have no more dreams.
Because your parents beat it out of you.
I think it's like parents try their best, but they want to give you, they want to help you. They don't want to build up too many crazy ideas in your head. But I think a lot of times unknowingly, because we think, oh my God, we don't want to lead to failure. We don't want a heartbreak. So then we basically, I think, mold the kids into being average.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it comes from a good place, right? You don't want your kid to be disappointed and to, you know, not realize their dreams. But at the same time, you're kind of killing that part of, you know, being a kid.
Well, I mean, like growing up, though, they're like, oh, what do you want to do? You can do anything you want with your life. And then when you get to adult age, they're like, oh, you want to do something like that? That's not possible. And it's like, but it is. Like,
well.
What? How do you stay motivated?
Man, there's a lot of good things to. I mean, this is the truth, right? I always try to go out of my comfort zone and look at things, experience things that are normal for other people that have way bigger thinking. And if you make friends with people that have done rather well, right, you realize how little we really achieve, right? And it doesn't matter in any field. There's somebody bigger, better, stronger in everything. If you make friends with them, they don't even have to say anything, right? You're like, oh my God, look at their lifestyle. If it's possible for them, why not me or why not you, right? We're no different. And just being around people who have a lot, who have achieved a lot, it just, to me, it's inspiring because it just bothers me. It just bothers me. I mean, go down Miami, go down any nice part of Chicago, you see people, nice houses, nice cars, like they have a lot of nice stuff, right? What makes them any different? Nothing.
I was just in LA for like a whole week.
Yeah.
I saw a lot to get inspired from.
Yeah. And it just, it can't, in a positive way, you can't be jealous, but you can certainly go like, well, why not me? Right? And I mean, to me, it's just, is thrilling, right? To look at somebody, because one man's, what is it? Something that's like, oh my God, to us, for somebody that's just
Normal.
Normal life, right? And so, I mean, to me, that's exciting.
Well, like that quote, it's not that I can and you can't, it's that I have and you haven't. Just do it.
No, 100%.
What do you attribute your success?
So I personally, all I am and all I ever will be is because of my parents, right? My parents, I think, gave me a great foundation. And a lot of things that they put the one thing, they were typical parents of immigrants, study hard, work hard kind of deal. But I think one thing they did probably better than any parent, I feel this way, is they put work ethic, man. Right? Even today, they're in their 70s. They work harder than any parent I know, right? They happen to be doctors and they're still doing surgeries at that age. But they put their nose to the grindstone and they go to work. And that's something that, to me, is the biggest thing, because they made one thing clear. I could not fail. Which is that they basically said, failure is not acceptable. You can fail, but you just can't give up. And that attitude, to me, the biggest failure would be is to go back to my parents and say, guys, I failed, and I'm never going to do that. So
this is the immigrant mentality.
Yeah,
the immigrant
100%. 100%.
Ricardo's an immigrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, I don't know if you knew. I don't know if you knew.
Yeah, I moved there when I was 15. So
Yeah.
I've only been here for like 13 years.
Yeah.
What is one thing you find to be true that most people would disagree with?
Man, these are difficult questions.
Everything.
I think, so we were talking about it a little bit earlier, is you got to believe in the 180-degree theory. Whatever everybody else is doing, you got to run from it. Because the leaders never do what everybody else does. If everybody jumps into something, get the heck out. And whenever everybody jumps out of something, get back in. This is just my basic philosophy. So.
All right, talking about that, I guess we could kind of talk about something else right now. But what's your thoughts on the current market right now?
I think, man, at least in the Chicago market in general, I think market's good. With the administration that we have, next 3 years, I think the market's going to be good. We'll see at some point a little bit of a turn down, right? A downturn, whichever way you want to call it. But I don't think it's happening yet. Yet, having said that, I think a lot of people will get caught from time to time on flips where it's not, hopefully they don't do properties where they put everything into them, but the higher priced properties in a lot of markets are getting stuck, at least in Chicago, right?
Like over 500 or?
Over, 600, 700s, right? In a lot of markets are having trouble because of tax issues, because of other economic, political things. So I think that's something that people need to be careful of.
So the under probably, 425 is probably
the median
a good
price
area
range.
to be
Median price range in any market is doing great, right? So,
Do you have a favorite failure? Is there one that set you up for future success?
yeah, I think I had a gas station. It burned down, and probably the low that I experienced at that time, right? One thing what I experienced at that time is that whenever you're doing well, right? I learned something. Somebody said that the good times we keep in our pocket, the bad times we keep in our heart, right? And what I experienced is that whatever you have or you don't have, you can't necessarily, that can't define who you are. So money or whatever you have, you got to be thankful for what you have and then still keep working towards it. And I think today, yes, my basic needs are met. I feel very fortunate because of that, but I feel I have way more ability. So the success is in the pursuit of it. The success is not a destination. So I think that failure, which is making a little bit of money and then suddenly losing it all, was probably the best life lesson. That it's not, money is something that you can earn, right? Wealth is something you have to build, but money is something you can earn. Most of us aren't trying to build wealth. My goal today is to build wealth that if something happens, it's there generation after generation after generation, right? So hopefully I leave a legacy that my nephew's nephew's nephew can go, oh my God, dude, my grandfather, you know,
Yeah,
he built a
they're
legacy.
gonna have one of those pictures of you
It's
above
just
the
like,
fireplace.
It's like in my own way, I want to leave a legacy. I mean, that's just what it is. So,
And you got to be humble too.
yeah, no, I mean, it's like money doesn't make. I used to think, man, money was everything because I was so desperate, right? I had so little that anything I did, I associated with money, right? And what I realized was your self-worth has nothing to do with money. You are who you are. Just because you have a little bit of money or doesn't make you more valuable or less valuable, right? It's just money makes your life easy. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I don't know if this relates, but it kind of talks about, being humble. Jamie Foxx, obviously, right? He's like super mega successful kind of guy. I was listening to an interview with him, and he says that in every house, mansion that he's ever had, he always keeps like 1 or 2 rooms just like not done, not painted or just ghetto with like maybe the window broken or like the blinds weird or like maybe like half a carpet, just to you remind him that where he came from and not to take for granted like where he's gotten in life. So I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. I don't know why that popped into my head. But anyway, I mean, thank you for being on the podcast.
Definitely,
really
man.
appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you?
People can find me on ChicagoREIA.org. That's Chicago REIA.org or ChicagoFlipping.com.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Till
Awesome,
next time,
bud.
guys.
Thank you.